Here is the vice president before the phone call talking about what he expected.
I think honestly that President Putin, he doesn't quite know how to get out of the war. If you think about this, he's got 1 million men under arms. He's re-engineered his entire economy. What used to be manufacturing facilities making, products for people to use in their civilian life, they're now making tank shells and artillery shells and drones. And so this is a little bit of guess, but I think the president would agree that part of this is I'm not sure that Vladimir Putin has a strategy himself for how to unwind the war, of course, that's been going on for a few years now. And I think there's also just a little bit of, look, there's fundamental mistrust.
They do not get proper knowledge, which is their pattern. It's not just Trump administration. None of those people do understand what Russia is, what is happening there, and especially they do not understand the real economy. And remarkably, no, it's actually what Russia expanded into. Not the plant which used to produce the civilian goods. No, Russia built separate civilian consumer goods product. No, it was the revitalizing of the older and expansion of the older facilities from the Soviet Union, like Ural Vagon Zavod, which is now in the 24/7, 3-shift non-stop production of tanks. It was called Ural Vagon Zavod. In reality, the wagon, which is the rail car was its secondary, tertiary thing, and it never produced them after some time. So it was done for the to confuse the intelligence services of the NATO. And so he doesn't understand. That's what I made a career in the United States on that. He doesn't understand the nature of the thing. He doesn't understand what is going on, because there is not a serious Russian scholar anywhere near levels of power or or influence in the United States. None. Zero. Remember John Mearsheimer, 2014. He comes out with this wonderful article and into foreign affairs, and correctly states that it was West which is guilty of what is going on in Ukraine. And then he describes Russia is declining state with the mediocre army and things of this nature. There you go. So how does this thing looks now, after 10 years, essentially? So, but you cannot, explain it to them, because the whole atmosphere, the whole real scholarly research have been poisoned. Even if you look attentively at Russia's or Soviet military history, the only people, which is the greatest credit to the U.S. Army and officer corps, were Colonel David Glantz and Jonathan House, who wrote this critical book, which essentially was and even there were some, but it's completely forgivable. They went for what anybody was supposed to do. They went into the Podolsk, into the main archives, of the Soviet Russian armed forces and even Russian Imperial Army. So, and they did their research. And when they present the thing, they said, Germans essentially were BSing us. Well, yeah. You have Franz Halder and Hauser and Weinstein writing the essentially history of the World War II for the U.S. Army. They worked for the U.S. Army Historical Society. Everything U.S. Army knows about Russia and Soviet Army is bunk primarily. The same goes for the economy and all that. And so now they look at this. I can tell you one thing. In terms of actual size, Russian economy is probably equal to that of India. In terms of technological development, is much higher. So it is the third economy in the world. And of course, then they come to Russia, and not only Moscow, St. Petersburg, or Sochi, but Nizhny Novgorod, Yekaterinburg, Vladivostok, and they look at this. This is supposed to be a dump. Well, no. They see the modern cities with a modern infrastructure, very good level of wealth, and what is worst for, obviously, for the combined West, and especially Europe, Russians are beginning to live better than they ever did. Then they begin to live better than Europe. Why? Jobs are everywhere. They need it, and especially jobs. Not some kind of, wholesale guy or just simply writing IT code, albeit that is needed too. You need engineers, you need welders, you need the CNC operators everywhere, literally. It's just not enough because the economy is booming. It grew last year, actually 5+%. Granted, GDP is altogether is, I don't accept it as a real measure of economy. And so that's what they are facing. And they cannot accept it. They don't have toolkit to grasp what they are looking at. You cannot take J.D. Vance and transplant him to Russia and say, here's a month, here's the money, go travel, talk to people, go to their manufacturing facility, state of the art. They don't even know. Russians produce their own lithography equipment now.
Yeah.
They don't understand the Russians produce their own commercial jets, which are state of the art. Yeah.
So that's Vance. One other I want to show about here. This is from yesterday, where Secretary of State Marco Rubio was asked, hey, what about the risk that Russia's just tapping Trump along?
We're no longer flying all over the world trying to set up meetings. So I think your question is, are they tapping us along? Well, that's what we're trying to find out. We'll find out pretty soon. They agreed they're going to exchange paper on ideas that get to a ceasefire. If those papers have ideas on them that are realistic and rational, then I think we know we've made progress. If those papers, on the other hand, have requirements in them that we know are unrealistic, then we'll have a different assessment. So there's some element of patience that is required. On the other hand, we don't have time to waste. There are a lot of other things happening in the world that we also need to be paying attention to. So we don't want to be involved in this process of just endless talks. There has to be some progress, some movement forward. And if at the end of this, in the next few days, we get a document produced by both sides and it shows that both sides are making concessions and being realistic and rational in their approach, then I think we can feel good about continuing to remain engaged.
Yeah, but if, as you've pointed out here in Putin's comments there before, he made it pretty clear he's not going to make concessions on the Russian side. So the question's going to be, when you go back over not just an informed 5-minute phone call, as you talked about a minute ago with Zelensky in the West, but with more substantive conversations, I think it's going to become pretty evident pretty quick that the Ukraine side is not going to give in and do all the things that the Russians asked for. Ergo, we are no closer to peace today than we were yesterday.
No. Russians only wait for Trump's promise to walk. In fact, is they keep the fingers crossed, say, hey, dude, how about you, put your, foot into your mouth and just do it. You promised it nonstop. He promised it for the last months. And each time he, like a leech, he comes back, he tries to call. He initiated the call with Putin. It's like same thing. Hey, dude, how about you, be consistent with what you just stated? Walk. He can't. United States can't, because United States.
So this is showing that there's going to be trouble coming up here. We've talked about on several episodes on our show a few times here recently that Rubio emphatically on the 18th of April said we are days away from walking if we don't get substance. Yeah. Then he said it again on the 29th. And then Trump himself said it on the 4th. And then the Rubio's press secretary, Tammy Bruce, said it on May the 1st as well. And then here he's still kind of saying that, but yet none of the things are happening and he's still not walking here. But there will come a point to where he's going to have a put up or shut up moment, because he can't keep the fiction going if Russia doesn't give him the ceasefire and they don't give in on these root causes, as they call them. There's going to be incompatible with the West. And then what's going to happen?
Absolutely. We are looking at the actually 500-year old and long end of the Western domination of the global politics, and Russia completely turned away from the combined West. It already happened. It's a fait accompli. It has been well documented. It has been stated many times from the highest podiums. And in this case, what can he possibly do? Nothing. He has to really, it's like the last chance for him to save the face, because he put, absolutely correctly stated, put up or shut up. That's simple as that. He has to, follow through with some of his promises, not those hollow statements. Everybody knows who is anybody who has a brain, that it's all hollow. It is all for the show. The reality was that United States cannot walk from this. It cannot walk from this because it is the first reason for that. It is originator of the whole Ukrainian crisis, with, as our good friend Larry Johnson correctly documented, Ukraine was pulled into NATO orbit since 1990s. It de facto is a NATO country with the exception of the Article 5. And that's what it is. And Trump is not interested in the ceasefire. U.S. foreign policy consensus and establishment are interested in preserving Ukraine as the future bridgehead to start trouble for Russia again, because they view Russia as their actually existential threat. It's simple as that. Well, with China too.